afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the Ontario Association of Architects and our 2025 Council, I'd like to thank you for joining us virtually for the OAA Annual General Meeting of Members. In 2022, OAA Council decided to decouple the AGM from our annual conference and host it as an event on its own in a virtual setting. This decision was based on our desire to offer a consistent approach and equal access, as well as to provide a uniform approach to member participation, and we've had great success in this format. I hope that when you first joined us online, you were able to take a moment to see the names of our newly licensed members scrolling across the screen. We're so proud of these folks and congratulate them on achieving their license. We can all appreciate the hard work and dedication that goes into reaching this milestone. My name's Ted Wilson, and I'm honored to be the OAA President for 2025. I'll begin today's meeting by acknowledging the land on which we are collectively situated throughout our province. For millennia, the place we call Ontario has been inhabited by Indigenous peoples and nations who've been stewards of the land. We honor the rich cultural and natural landscape our buildings and spaces are a part of, and the connection to the land that Indigenous peoples have valued since time immemorial. We're grateful for our Indigenous knowledge that guides us, and we commit to build in harmony with the land and create sustainable spaces for generations to come. I invite you to take a moment of reflection to acknowledge our shared responsibility to address past and present injustices and to provide space for Indigenous knowledge and worldviews to shape the architectural landscape of Turtle Island. Before we move to the business of the meeting, I would like to ask the OAA's Executive Director, Christy Doyle, to take a moment to introduce the members of the 2025 Council.
Thank you, Ted, and good afternoon, everyone. Like Ted, I am very pleased to be here with you today, joined by our members, joined by those on the pathway to licensure, and also a number of guests, all from across the country and within Ontario. It is with great pleasure that I have this opportunity to introduce the members of the OAA's 2025 Council. Lulua Alkasawat, Donald Ardeal, Bill Birdsell, Jim Butici, Kimberly Fawcett-Smith, Natasha Cricken, Jenny LaFrance, Michelle Longglade, Laura McKendrick, Elaine Mintz, Dio Paquette, Anna Richter, Christiana Schumann, Susan Spiegel, Setimo Velarde, Ted Watson, Thomas Young, Marek Zawadski, and of course, Ted Wilson, the OAA President. It is very important to recognize the efforts of these individuals and the hard work that they perform as members of the Council. In addition to serving on Council, they also spend time serving on OAA committees and in partnership with many volunteers that carry out the important work of the association. Thank you so very much to our councillors for their hard work and dedication to the profession. Before I hand the meeting back to President Wilson, I'd like to remind everyone the agenda and the formal procedure for today's meetings were circulated to the membership in electronic mailing on the 17th of March. I hope that everyone has had a chance to review these procedures in advance of today's meetings. Motions that are to be voted on during today's meeting were circulated with the agenda. And again, I'd like to remind everybody that the meeting cannot vote on items that were not contained within the official agenda, and therefore new motions and or resolutions cannot be accepted today. As always, we are open to receiving comments and questions from the members under other business on the agenda, which will occur following the President's address. Anyone wishing to provide comment at that time is requested to use the Q&A or question and answer function, which appears at the bottom of the screen. The Q&A function can also be used to ask a question pertaining to any of the items that are presented during the course of the meeting today. The President has asked me to monitor the Q&A, and I will bring forward questions as appropriate during the course of the meeting. Technical questions can also be answered here, and they will be answered either individually to the person in writing. This meeting is being recorded and will be available for viewing on the OAA's YouTube channel at a later date. For the purpose of the meeting minutes, the meeting will be recorded verbatim, and therefore any questions asked will be attributed to the member accordingly. With this in mind, please be sure that your full name is included within the body of your question as you type it into the Q&A area. Anonymous questions will not be accepted. If a question has already been asked and answered, it will not be addressed a second time. And finally, if an individual has multiple questions in a row, those that have not had a question answered may be moved up in the queue so that we can provide everyone with an opportunity to ask questions. And finally, if you've got multiple questions on a topic, if you can enter them in individually, that would be useful so that we can deal with them on an individual basis. At this time, I'd like to take just a quick moment to make sure that everyone has had a chance to review the online voting process. So together, let's conduct a quick test and a sample motion. I'd ask all those that are eligible to vote to please go to the chat and click on the link that is being provided right now in the chat. This should open a web page for you where the voting for this meeting is available, and we ask you to keep this open on your device or computer for the rest of the meeting. The motions that are to be voted on today will be presented on that screen at the appropriate time. When the President calls the motion and calls for the vote, our voting system will enable registrants who are able to vote, eligible to vote, to choose one of the following options. Yes, meaning I approve, no, I reject, or you may also abstain. It's at this time that you will cast your vote. So let's take just a quick minute to go through this process together. By now, you should have clicked on the link that appeared in the chat, and that window should be open on your screen, either as a second tab or window, or if you've set it up as a split screen, you should be seeing it right in front of you. If you go to that screen, you should now see the option to do a test vote. And the first step is for you to validate your eligibility to vote. So please enter your access key, which is your OAA email of record. This is very important that you use the email that we have on file in our database that you have provided to us. You will now see that you need to enter a password, which is AGM in caps, AGM 2025. Now that the eligibility is validated, you should see a motion that says cake is the best dessert. Please vote now. As always, voting will be conducted on the premise of honor and integrity of the individual. Notwithstanding the virtual meeting is set up today such that only voting members will in fact have the opportunity and the option to vote, all other meeting attendees should not attempt to vote in any manner. The results of each vote will be tabulated in real time and then announced to the meeting before moving to the next item of business. For the official record, I can confirm that we did not receive any proxy votes for today. On a final note, if for some reason you're unable to make use of the online voting, I see in the chat that we've got the motion has passed, so we've had a successful test vote. Thank you, Sherry. On a final note, if for some reason you're unable to make the voting system work due to technical or other issues, you may still cast a vote by emailing your vote to on each of the published motions, which were attached to the official agenda, to OAA Executive Assistant Tina Carfa. Her email address is tinac@oaa.on.ca, and your vote will be registered accordingly. It is now my pleasure to reintroduce OAA President Ted Wilson. Ted.
Thanks, Christy. As the new president of the OAA, I wanted to take a few moments to talk about the opportunities and benefits of serving on OAA Council. In addition to now being president, I served as the senior vice president and treasurer. And prior to that, I had the opportunity to serve as vice president, providing input to OAA committees and keeping council updated on their work. It's been and continues to be a challenging and rewarding set of experiences, particularly in collaborating with our diligent staff and very mindful fellow councillors. OAA Council comprises elected members of the profession and appointed lieutenant governors in council. We collectively focus on fulfilling the OAA's principal object, which is to regulate the practice of architecture and to govern its members, holders of certificates of practice, and holders of temporary licenses in accordance with the Architects Act, the regulations and bylaws, in order that the public interest may be served and protected. We also focus on fulfilling the goals of the OAA's strategic plan. Again, as a council mandated by the Architects Act, we're here to see that the public interest is served and protected. We're here as councillors to represent the people of Ontario. We're a regulatory body working to provide for ethical, professional, transparent, and accountable members. In this context, we acknowledge our responsibility for making decisions in the public interest that can have substantial effects on the individual careers of members and the practice of architecture in Ontario. We are very mindful of this as we serve on council. And having engaged with so many members at all stages of their careers, we're also very mindful that there are many of you that aspire to the opportunities and experiences that being on council can provide. If you have an interest, let us know. There's a breadth and depth of talent in this profession that is truly remarkable. And when I visit each of the societies in the months ahead, this invitation to you will be top of mind for me. We will all benefit from the contribution of your skills and energy. Ours is a profession that is self-regulated. This is indeed a privilege and always will be. Be a part of it and aspire to be a councillor. There'll be more to come about this year's elections for council later in August. Watch for information on our website, social media, and the OAA News. And if you have questions about volunteering for an OAA council position or one of the many committees, please contact me at president@oaa.on.ca. There are also opportunities for mentors to advise student associates, interns, and student technologists and intern technologists. They would all benefit from your sharing your experience and guidance as they continue their paths to licensure. The OAA also continues to build its mentor directory. Join your colleagues, help support the next generation of the profession, and watch the OAA News for more information on that. And with that, let's return to the business of the AGM and specifically celebrate the achievements of some very special members. The next item of business is to recognize those among us who, over the last year, have marked 50 years of membership with the OAA. On behalf of the association and the profession, I am so pleased to recognize 6 individuals who've been recently reached this milestone. The full bios and photos of these members will be available to view on the OAA website later this spring. Our first new member of long standing is Charles G. Bunker. Charles began his architectural career as a draftsperson with John B. Parkin Architects from 1962 to 1964. He earned his Bachelor of Architecture from the University of Miami in 1970 and 2 years later completed a Master of Architecture degree at Kansas State. From 1972 to 1985, Charles served as Manager of Interior Design at Knorr Architects, where he honed his experience in both design and project management. Since 1985, he has operated his own architectural practice, Charles G. Bunker Architect Inc., focusing on residential projects with a select number of commercial endeavors. Charles resides in a notable trend house in Toronto, designed and once inhabited by renowned architect Eric Arthur. Built in 1956, this home was part of a program promoting wood construction in residential architecture. The legacy of Eric Arthur continues to inspire Charles in both his work and life. Our next new member of long-standing is Alessandro Sasha Milanov. Sasha is a distinguished architect and planner with more than 6 decades of professional experience. He graduated from the University of Belgrade School of Architecture in 1960 and earned a Master of Science in Planning in 1967. After immigrating to Toronto in 1968, Sasha became a member of the Town Planning Institute of Canada in 1969 and joined the OAA in 1974. Establishing his solo architectural practice in 1978, Sasha has delivered architectural and planning services to a broad range of clients, including private sector organizations, municipal governments, and public agencies. Renowned for his dedication and innovative approach, Sasha's work reflects a commitment to fostering sustainable and functional urban environments. At 88 years old, Sasha remains actively engaged in his profession, driven by an enduring passion for design and planning, with no intention of retiring anytime soon. Our third member of long-standing is Denis Giroux. Denis graduated from the University of Toronto in 1969. Early in his career, he worked with Nicole Rea-McBain Architects, spending 2 years as an on-site representative in Sault Ste. Marie. From 1973 to 1974, Denis joined the architects for the Metro Council, Metro Center, and contributed to the design team for the CN Tower. He later worked with Peter Kaspari Architects as an on-site representative and site architect for the Shepherd Center project. Denis joined Page and Steele Architects in 1975, advancing to associate partner during his tenure until 2000. He managed contract administration for numerous projects, including Ports condominiums and office buildings, Marina del Rey condominiums, Madison Center, and renovations at the University of Toronto and Queen's University. Established in 1993 for projects in Quebec, Denis, his sole proprietorship, has since expanded to other provinces. He became a partner in Atkins Architects in 2000. Retiring in 2017, his firm transitioned to One Space Unlimited, Inc. Today, Denis remains active, managing small school and commercial renovation projects as Denis Giroux Architect. The next member of long-standing is Joseph Somfay. Joseph emigrated to Canada in 1967 from Australia during a world tour to study high-rise buildings and urban design. Prior to this, he completed design drawings for Qantas 50-story world headquarters in Sydney while working with Jocelyn and Gilling Architects. Captivated by iconic structures like the Lever Building and the TD Centre, Joseph paused his tour and discovered Jack Diamond's master program in architecture and urban design at the University of Toronto. He became Jack Diamond and Martin Meyer's first employee, contributing to York Square, and completed the program in 1969 while serving as a teaching assistant. Post-graduation, Joseph taught design, energy conservation, and group design at the University of Waterloo for 17 years, helping students develop lifelong creative approaches. While teaching, founded his own firm, pioneering passive and active solar homes and innovations like exterior basement insulation. His firm received a Governor General's Award in 1985 and expanded to larger projects, including university buildings and high-rise designs. After decades of practice, Joseph joined IBI in 2013, establishing a successful architectural division in their Waterloo office. Although semi-retired, his passion for architecture remains unwavering, and he continues consulting while reflecting on a career driven by creativity and innovation. Our fifth new member of longstanding is Peter F. Turner. Peter, founding principal of Turner Fleischer, has been a driving force behind the firm's success and reputation for more than 50 years. A graduate of the University of Toronto and the Harvard Graduate School of Design, Peter's contribution to the architectural and construction industries have garnered widespread recognition. A fellow of the Royal Architectural Institute of Canada and a registered professional planner, he frequently serves as an expert urban design witness at the Ontario Municipal Board and has contributed to the OAA Practice Committee and Design Review panels for the cities of Vaughan and Mississauga. Known for his innovative approach, Peter uses a dialectic approach to develop multifaceted, practical, and aesthetically pleasing design solutions. Beyond his project work, Peter is committed to mentorship, guiding emerging talent through the TF Academy, Turner Fleischer's in-studio learning program, and encouraging a deeper understanding of the urban design and city building. His legacy lies not only in Turner Fleischer's impact on the built environment, but also in the generations of architects he has inspired. And the final member of our long-standing list is Slobodan Vladimировich. Slobodan earned a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the University of Manitoba in 1969 and became an OAA member in 1973. Early in his career, he worked with small architectural practices before transitioning to government roles. A notable project during this time was the major renovation of 1 Front Street, where he had the opportunity to collaborate with Jim Strassman of Strassman Architects. While with government, Slobodan was instrumental in the implementation of computer-aided design, that is AutoCAD, within the Ontario Regional Office. He developed and delivered training programs for professionals and technologists in the use of CAD systems. Additionally, he directed the solar energy program for federal buildings in Ontario and successfully managed numerous office space renovations. He concluded his government career as manager of architectural services at Public Works and Government Services Canada. And since retiring from public service, Slobodan has continued to offer architectural services focusing on residential, office, and commercial building projects. Again, thank you and congratulations to these 6 individuals for their perseverance, dedication, and long-standing contributions to our profession. I'll now call on our Executive Director, Christy Doyle, to take a moment to also recognize OAA past councillors whose terms on OAA Council ended in 2024.
Thank you so much, Ted, and congratulations to those members of longstanding. Quite an achievement. It is now my pleasure on behalf of the OAA and the Governing Council to take this opportunity to acknowledge the contribution of past council members Christina Carney and Greg Redden. These individuals have made important contributions to the OAA and to the profession during their time on council. We will be presenting each of them with a framed certificate of appreciation, and they've been invited to join us at the conference in Ottawa in May to receive their certificate. At this time, I'd like to take just a few moments to share a couple of words about each of these individuals. Christina Carney joined the OAA Council in 2022 and served a 3-year term concluding at the end of 2024. Christina brought a very specific energy to the council along with a positive attitude and always a smile. As an architect whose career has been, I would say, a little bit more strategic focused and perhaps less traditional, she brought a very specific perspective and dimension to the work of the Governing Council. In just one term, Christina made a considerable contribution. In her first year on council, Christina was elected to the Executive Committee, serving as Vice President. In this capacity, she took on the role of Chair of the Policy Advisory Coordination Team, or PACT as we like to call it, as well as chaired the Sustainable Built Environment Committee. Christina also contributed as an OAA representative to a number of industry groups that the OAA is involved in, including at the table of the Construction and Design Alliance of Ontario and the OAA's Best Practice Liaison Committee with the Ontario General Contractors Association. Well regarded by her peers, Christina continued as a vice president in her second year and moved over to chair the new Communications and Public Education Committee. She also served on the Experience Requirements Committee and the Continuing Education Advisory Committee. Christina, it is with great pleasure to say thank you and to extend our sincere appreciation. It was a pleasure working with you, and I know that your contributions are continuing through the Hamilton Burlington Society of Architects, so thank you. And now I have the pleasure of recognizing Greg Redden. Greg also joined the council in 2022 and served a 3-year term ending in December. Thank you, Greg, for making the leap from your society involvement to the council table. It's something that came up in conversations between us many times over the years. Your experience with the Niagara Society of Architects brought valuable insight to the council discussions, as well as your focus on grassroots practice and local issues. Sometimes measured in your conversation, your thoughtfulness as well as your wit and frankness was appreciated. Greg's committee work focused in the essential regulatory aspects of the OAA, including the Complaints Committee, as well as the Experience Requirements Committee, or ERC. Both of these committees are critical to the OAA's fulfillment of our regulatory duties and can have a very heavy workload. Sincerely focused on climate action, Greg also sat on the formal Sustainable Built Environment Committee, as well as serving this past year as one of our OAA trustees. Greg's role as liaison for the Niagara Society of Architects was a perfect fit, as he, again, is a great advocate for local issues. We are all very thankful for his work in helping pull together the Niagara Society of Architects welcome event that was featured at the conference last year in Niagara. Greg, we will miss your thoughtful insights and contributions around the council table and committees. On behalf of the association and council, our sincere appreciation and gratitude. Ted, I'll send it back to you.
Thank you, Chrissy. On a more somber note, it is with great sadness that I would ask everyone to please observe a moment of silence to recognize those members and past members who have passed away since our last meeting. I'm going to read the names individually. Brian Andrew, Bruce A. Berglund, John Blooms, John Babalik, Mohsen Y. Bokter, Louis E. J. Cook, Graham Cropley, Dino Dutra, Bruce L. Fair, Greg Gordon, Vaughn Holbein, Jocelyn Honeyman, Kavaki Kangas, Stephen Peter Katz, Alan Littlewood, Robert B. McKenzie, Gordon Edward Mardishuk, Gerald Philip Belon, Bernard Rash, Alfred C. Roberts, Hillel Roebuck, Desmond Rochaudry, Diem Saichu, Stanley E. Sota, Fedor Tish, W. R. White, David P. C. Young. Thank you. I will now call this meeting to order for the formal business section. No amendments to the agenda have been identified, and therefore the agenda today will stand as circulated. The next item of business is confirmation of the synopsis of the minutes of the 134th Annual General Meeting, which was held on April 11th, 2024. I will now ask if there have been any errors or omissions identified. We will pause for about a moment to allow for feedback. Please use the Ask a Question function.
But I'm just monitoring the Q&A. I don't see any questions that are specific to the synopsis at this point in time.
Okay. So seeing no corrections identified, I'll move forward with the motion and voting. For the purposes of efficiency, we've arranged for movers and seconders in advance. So for this first motion, OAA member Christy Lynn Allman Fraser of Etobicoke has agreed to move the motion to accept the synopsis as circulated, a copy of which was sent to members on March 17th, 2025. And OAA member Sandra Smith of Toronto has seconded the motion. The motion appears on the screen and is noted by Christy at the outset. Please cast your vote when the voting options appear. I'll now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote, and we'll pause for about a minute to allow time for the votes to be cast.
And I do have confirmation now, Ted, that the motion is passed.
Thank you, Christy. Okay, so our next item of business arising from the minutes. Is there any business arising from the synopsis of the minutes of the April 24, 2024 AGM? We'll pause here for a moment to allow for questions to be entered into the Ask a Question function.
Again, Ted, I'm just scrolling through to see if there's anything specific to the minutes, the synopsis, and I don't see anything at this point in time.
Thank you, Christy. So we'll move on with the next item of business. This will be the appointment of an auditor. OAA member Tone Dreesen of Ottawa has moved, and Gianna Mira of Ottawa has seconded the motion to appoint BDO Canada LLP Chartered Accountants as auditors to the OAA. I'll now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote. We'll pause again for a moment to allow for votes to be cast.
And the motion is passed, Ted.
Thank you, Christy. Our next item is the confirmation of the OAA Bylaws, amended 2025. The amendments were necessary to reflect recent changes to the Regulation 27 under the Architects Act, which allows for the issuance of limited licenses. Also included is an amendment to update to councillor responsibilities under Section 7, as agreed to by the Governing Council. Finally, there's a minor housekeeping amendment to reflect the move to a virtual format for the annual general meeting. In accordance with the Architects Act, bylaws made by Council are subject to confirmation at the next annual general meeting of the members. All members will have received a copy of the amended bylaws on March 17th, 2025. So this next motion, moved by OAA member Megan Elizabeth Jane Totsa of Toronto and seconded by Mary Ellen Lynch Camiso of Toronto, to approve the amendments to OAA Bylaws amended 2025. I'll now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their votes, and we'll pause for a moment to allow for the voting to occur.
And Ted, I can confirm that the motion is passed.
Okay, thank you, Christy. Our next item is the confirmation of the amendment to OAA Bylaws, amended 2025, Schedule A, which was emailed to members on March 17th, 2025. Schedule A within the bylaws has been amended to reflect an increase in fees of 2.7% for 2025. Schedule A also incorporates changes to the schedule of fees to include those with limited licenses as reflected in the changes to the Architects Act and Regulation 27. For this motion, OAA member Drew Hauser of Hamilton has moved the motion, and Amy Norris of Carp has seconded the motion to approve the amendments to OAA Bylaws amended 2025 Schedule A. I'll now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote, and we'll pause for about a minute to allow for the votes to be cast.
And I have confirmation now, Ted, that the vote is complete and the motion is passed.
Thank you, Christy. The next item is the appointment of honorary membership. Honorary members are a class of persons whose interests are related to those of the association, as defined in Regulation 27 under the Architects Act, as those who have rendered to the architectural profession signal or valuable service, who have been scrupulous in upholding the objects of the association. This year, one individual, Dr. Ted Kessick, has been nominated for honorary membership. The name of this individual was contained in the official agenda emailed to members on March 27th, 2025. I would like to recognize OAA member Ana Francisca de la Mora Campos of Toronto, who has been kind enough to share the nomination for Dr. Ted Kessick and move a motion to elect him as an honorary member in the following pre-recorded message.
Hello everyone, I am Ana Francisca de la Mora. I'm the chair of the Toronto Society of Architects. It's with great joy to pass this motion for Ted to become a OAA honorary member. Ted has been a pillar of the sustainability community, not only in Ontario, but across North America. Ted's work in areas such as energy modeling, building enclosure design, quality assurance commissioning, performance verification, and resiliency, just to name a few, have created multiple guides, resources, and tools free to use and easily available. This has enabled architects to translate the latest research into actionable strategies for more durable and efficient buildings. Ted's passion for sustainability can only be matched by his love of teaching, not only with the schools of architecture, but in other professional education settings. Ted has created and delivered numerous continuous education courses, including many as part of the Toronto Society of Architects technical lecture series. Ted's contributions to the architectural profession are immense, and we all owe him a debt of gratitude for not only instilling generations of architects with a deep passion for sustainability, but helping shape and provide the tools that allow us to fulfill this commitment. Thank you. I hope you can pass this motion, and it will be seconded by Joel, our Executive Director by the TSA. Thank you for your time.
So just to reconfirm Anna's statement, OAA member Joel David Leon Dany of Toronto has seconded the motion. So I will now ask all members eligible to vote to cast their vote, and we'll pause for some time to allow for the votes to be cast.
Ted, I can confirm that the motion is passed.
Thank you, Christy. The next item is the 2024 annual report, which was posted on the OAA website in March. It was mentioned in previous OAA newsletters about this AGM, and you can also find it on the OAA website. To present the annual report, I'm calling on Settimo Verardi, immediate past president of the OAA. Sep.
Thanks, Ted. If you haven't read it, please do check out the 2024 annual report. It has a clean, simple infographics and layout, as well as a more condensed focus on the regulatory aspects of the association and its activities that fall within our 5-year strategic plan. It is also a very slick read, illustrated with photos of many OAA Design Excellence Award winners from last year, showcasing some of the exciting work being done by Ontario architecture profession, both in the province and beyond. Last year was my second term as president, and I'm so extremely proud of what is highlighted throughout the annual report, even though it only shows a fraction of the ongoing work of our council, our volunteers, and our staff. I'm still part of the council executive for 2025, serving as the immediate past president, and it has been great watching these initiatives and programs continue. One of our most significant milestones last year has led to the successful implementation of limited licenses, enabling qualified individuals to become OAA members as licensed technologists. This includes the relaunch of the OAA technology program and the welcoming of student technologists and intern technologists into our community. Working with the provincial government has been such a positive experience and has shown to me that we are a valuable relationship and have trust of the association as a professional regulator within the public interest, with the public interest in mind. We also held an anonymous juried landscape design competition to select a team to transform our net zero headquarters grounds into a more sustainable, climate responsive space. Again, you can read more in the annual report, which also outlines the 4 foundational goals in our strategic plan: regulatory leadership, governance and operations, member competency, and public education. All of this is under 2 lenses: climate action and equality, diversity, and inclusion, with a commitment to reconciliation. The only other item I wanted to highlight from last year is that the OAA and the 14 local architectural societies are really strengthening our relationship. I was so honored to be able to visit all of our societies across the province in person last fall, as we continue to find new ways to support each other in our connected roles. I have been the chair of the Windsor Region Society of Architects, and I must tell you that the societies offer a unique way for those in the profession to stay connected at the local level with both peers and the communities we serve. Many of them offer networking and continuing education, including technical tours qualifying for structured learning, as well as deeper insight into local challenges and opportunities. If you're not part of a local society, I highly recommend joining one, whether you're an OAA member, an intern, or a student. Again, if you have any questions regarding the annual report, please ask them in the Q&A box.
That if I could jump in quickly, thank you for that. And I do have a question in the Q&A that I think is pertinent to what you just spoke about, in particular the annual report and the strategic plan, which you spoke of. There is a question from member Rafid Cousteau asking about the progress of the 5-year strategic plan. 3 years have passed. I might suggest that certainly some of the things that in terms of the progress have just been highlighted by you, and things that are in our annual report each year speak directly to the strategic plan. There's a question, part of this question was particularly about advancement of the modernization to the Architects Act. I'll just echo perhaps, Sat, what you said about the changes to the Act and the regulation related to limited licenses, because certainly that is something in the realm of Act modernization and part of that bigger picture project that has been achieved. So that was achieved. And then the last part of the question from Rafid is about the time span. He's noted that some strategic plans 2 years, why the OAA established 5 years. I don't want to speak directly for the council, I'll let you weigh in, but certainly a 5-year plan. There are varying timeframes that you can pick. Certainly, a lot of these initiatives take time. So I know that certainly in the conversations with council about the development of the strategic plan, the timeframe was chosen to make sure that we can actually achieve things. 5 years is actually not that long, and so that we can see incremental progress over that 5 years, as opposed to trying to re-envision the plan every 2 years. So I don't know, Seth, if there's anything you would like to add to that, but that is was a question from member Rafid Cousteau.
Yeah, I think you covered it all. I mean, I would reiterate again that the 5-year plan, I think, is an important one, because Some of the items that we endeavored to achieve have a longer time horizon. And of course, we need that time in order to achieve these items. We're actually in our 4th year. It's actually gone by pretty quick and into our 5th year now. And so again, I think we've made a lot of accomplishments to that strategic plan. And I think we're getting ready next year to sort of continue with some initiatives and maybe look at new initiatives, but it's been quite successful. And I would again reiterate that bigger goals, bigger tasks do take a longer time. I want to thank council, certainly as my time as president and previous council and current council for keeping their eye on the ball and making our way through this strategic plan in a really focused, concerted way.
I don't see anything else set here very specific to the annual report, a couple of other questions, but we'll add those to the end after the president's address.
Great, thanks.
Ted, I think we're back to you, Ted.
Thank you, Seth and Christy. In my capacity now as Senior Vice President and Treasurer from 2024, I'd like to take the opportunity to present the 2024 Audited Financial Report. I'd like to begin by thanking OAA Management and Council for their diligent and collective efforts in ensuring that the OAA continues to be in a strong financial position and the OAA's finances continue to be well managed. As reported by the OAA's auditors, BDO Canada LLP, in our opinion, the accompanying non-consolidated financial statements present fairly in all material respects the non-consolidated financial position of the association as of November 30, 2024, and its non-consolidated results of operations and its non-consolidated cash flows for the year then ended in accordance with Canadian accounting standards for not-for-profit organizations. We continue to see the membership grow in 2024, which resulted in increased income from member renewals. At the close of fiscal 2024, our members' equity was sitting at $70,802,556 compared to $61,863,314 in 2023. Each year, we take this opportunity to remind the members that of this total amount, $59,180,315 is related to the OAA's investment in Pro-Demnity Insurance Company. Another key objective of the Council over the last year has been the continued focus on the OAA's 3 reserve funds that make up the remainder of members' equity. These include the Major Capital Reserve Fund, a total of $1,576,226, the Operating Reserve at $2,158,751, and the Legal Reserve at $285,500. The use of these funds is restricted to the Association's reserve fund policies, which are available through the OAA. The OAA's Finance and Audit Committee, in cooperation with Association staff, developed in 2023 a 3-year reserve fund plan, which incorporates the Building Reserve Fund study to ensure these funds are sitting at the appropriate minimum amounts as defined by each of the fund's respective policies into the future. In fiscal 2024, the OAA transferred $1,285,336 to the Major Capital Reserve Fund and $866,204 to the Operating Reserve Fund. The OAA has also $6,996,850 in property and equipment, which includes the long-term assets for the OAA headquarters, computer equipment, furniture and equipment, and OAA website, less depreciation and mortgage. In addition to these restricted amounts, a further $3,938,263 remains as unrestricted members' equity, which can be used as an additional contingency to offset shortfalls resulting from unbudgeted expenditures or unanticipated revenue fluctuations. OAA's Senior Vice President and Treasurer, Lara McKendrick, will discuss the next steps in the 3-year reserve plan related to the 2025 fiscal year, which address the future planning for the unrestricted reserve fund. Again, I invite you to review the 2024 financial statements available on the OAA website. And Christy, I'll ask if there's any questions regarding the financial statements for 2024.
Okay. Thank you, Ted. I do have a couple of questions. I'm going to, so this is from member Rafid Cousteau. There's a couple of questions, and the first one is in regard to note 9 to the financial statements. And there's just a question about why the comprehensive, or the error that was, or the comprehensive loss that was noted on page 10, note 9, from the previous year's statement 2023, and why this amount was deducted from 2024. Question mark, was this legal? I'm not sure if you want to handle that, Ted, if you've got note 9, or you'd like to refer it to our auditor.
I would like to defer it to the auditor.
Okay. Lisa, are you available?
Yes. Sorry, trying to turn my camera on here. It doesn't want to. Perfect. This was related to the equity pickup of Pro-Demnity. So in the prior year, they went through a change in accounting policy that was mandated through the accounting policies that Pro-Demnity follows, which is international financial reporting standards. And when there's a change in accounting standards, they have to be applied retroactively. So there was a retroactive adjustment because they have to, so you can show comparative information that makes sense, that follow the same accounting policies. When this happened, there was a change in adjustment of $2.6 million that was adjusted on Pro-Demnity statements, but was not picked up in OAA statements last year and should have been. That is all that this note is about. So it really doesn't have much to do with OAA's operations, but it has everything to do with Pro-Demnity and a change in accounting policies. So I would say, yes, it's legal. There's no legal issues around it. And this is how adoption of new accounting policies is applied.
Thank you, Lisa. Back to you, Christy.
Okay, Ted, second part to the question about the statement of operations, concern raised about the OAA building and property fee. It is too much, just renovated. There's a quote, the number being quoted is 1.505163 million. Question, where is the energy saving? I think just for clarification, that number, the $1.5+ million is listed as building, office services, and operating. So this is not just about the energy consumption or the 2030 status of the building. This includes everything from property taxes, leasing of equipment within the building, for example, a photocopier, insurances that we pay on an annual basis, administrative fees. So there's a lot more to that. So perhaps I'll just offer that as a clarification. I'm not sure, Ted, if you'd like to add anything to that, but that is what is in that number.
Thank you, Christy.
Okay, third part, just a question about who signed the financial statements. That would be Ted Wilson and Lara McKendrick. Ted as president, Lara McKendrick as senior vice president and treasurer. And those statements go forward to council, and they are approved by the full council, which includes lieutenant governor and council appointees. So they are also at the table. And the final part of the question was about the loss related to the court order. which was reported last year in 2023. And so there was a note in last year's financial statements related to the settlement, which was $35,000. So that was a cost to the OAA, as well as in 2020, at the end of 2024, which is reported now, was a total of an additional about $22,000 that was attributed to that court order as well. In 2023, some might have noted there was a contingent liability noted that was over and above $300,000. But again, this is reported as a contingent liability, but in reality, that was realized at the amount of $22,000. So that's the total for that.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Christy.
I'm just scrolling to see for. Okay. I think that's it for the financial statements. Thank you, Ted.
Thank you. I would like now to introduce the OAA's Senior Vice President and Treasurer, Laura McKendrick, to provide her report on the financial outlook for 2025. Laura.
Thank you, Ted. So moving forward from the 2024 financial year to the OAA's 2025 finances, after reviewing the first quarter financial statements, I can report that the OAA finances are tracking normally with the continued careful oversight of both management and council as a whole. Our 2025 operating budget was established with the hybrid approach in mind, a hybrid being both in-person and virtual operations. That's for both operations and administration and for council and committee meetings. The OAA's return to office policy continues to allow for ongoing opportunities for remote work, as well as holding meetings virtually. And this is consistent with our commitment to address climate action and to reduce our overall carbon footprint. I want to take a moment to refer back to Ted's earlier comment regarding our focus on the association's reserve funds. And I can confirm that the OAA Audit and Finance Committee continues, along with management, to closely oversee the OAA's plan to build the restricted fund reserves to the appropriate levels. As per the OAA's 3-year reserve plan, and previously stated by Ted, in the first quarter of 2025, we did do the transfer of $1,285,336 into the major capital reserve and $800,624 into the operating reserve after council approval of the 2024 audited financial statements. The 3-year reserve plan, as developed in 2023, took into account the restricted reserve fund balances at the 2023 fiscal year end, the recommendations in the Building Reserve Fund study, the OAA's own reserve fund policies, the Canadian Revenue Agency's recommendations and guidelines for not-for-profit organization reserve funds, as well as anticipated capital expenditures over the 3-year period ending fiscal year 2026. The intention of this plan is to ensure the OAA has adequate funds to cover all anticipated as well as unforeseen financial activities based on best practices and in line with the CRA guidelines and the OAA's own reserve policies. The OAA Audit and Finance Committee are diligent in reviewing the reserve funds to ensure that the OAA continues to be a prudent, not-for-profit organization that follows CRA guidelines with respect to reserve fund amounts and required documentation of purpose of said funds. As such, we will continue to pay attention to the policies, ongoing financials, and also continue to consider opportunities to have our unrestricted reserves transferred in order that we may quickly reach the policy prescribed minimum levels in the reserves. I can report that we remain on track to meet our goal of completing the 3-year plan by fiscal year end of 2026. And I look forward to working with the Finance and Audit Committee on the fiscal 2026 budget that gets us there. That covers my comments on the first quarter financial statements. So if anyone has any questions, I'll be happy to answer them. Christy?
I'm just scrolling. There's nothing related to your current comments, Laura. If anything comes in, we can always circle back.
Okay. Thank you. As the interlocking director to Pro-Demnity Insurance Company, I now have the pleasure of welcoming the chair of the Pro-Demnity Board, Deborah Krakow. Deborah will provide a brief overview of Pro-Demnity Insurance Company's activities over the past year.
Hi, I'm Deborah Krakow. I'm the chair of the board at Pro-Demnity, and I'm very happy to be here this afternoon. We've had a productive year at Pro-Demnity, and today I'd like to take a few minutes to brief you on some of our accomplishments as well as our ongoing initiatives. When you renew your policy every year with Pro-Demnity, we are renewing our pledge to you to protect and defend you, and everything we're working on is with that goal in mind. You'll have noticed when you renewed your policy this year that we've put out refreshed wording to make it clearer to read, easier to understand, and that we've moved some of the endorsements into a separate technical requirements schedule. This is a document you can share with your design team and make sure that you design the building envelope in a way that should you ever get a claim for water ingress, you'll know that you're covered. We've also added in coverage for precast concrete exterior walls and window wall systems, which were not previously eligible for coverage. Now, our defense and protection of architects goes well beyond having a comprehensive professional liability policy. We want to make sure that you have tools at your disposal to help you be aware of the risks associated with business and design, and that you have tools to mitigate those risks. So there are a few programs that I'd like to draw your attention to. One is ARMOR, which stands for Architectural Risk Management Assessment Report. It's a self-serve tool available through our website that walks you through your business and practice and brings awareness to the risks and how you can mitigate those risks. We also have a Speak with an Expert program where you can make an appointment to have a one-on-one with one of our in-house architects to talk about concerns related to clients, projects, design issues, etc., and get personalized risk guidance. And finally, we have our podcast series, The Claims-Free Architect, and I'm happy to tell you that we have over 7,000 listeners to date. We've been hearing from many of you, and we know that your firms are facing significant financial pressure, and we are doing what we can to help. With that in mind, and to make sure that we're being fair and equitable in pricing your premiums, we're introducing in the coming year an experience rating factor. This will take into account your firm's claims experience over the past number of years as compared to the profession as a whole. And this will allow us to be fair and equitable in how we price your professional liability policy. We're doing this in a way as to be revenue neutral to Pro-Demnity. So let's look briefly at some of the financials. 2024 was a good year for Pro-Demnity financially. Claims were down a little bit, investment returns were up, and so we ended the year with a strong capital position. Our minimum capital test, that's our MCT ratio, is at a healthy 303%, and that's a really important number because that's a measure of our capital strength. The regulator, the board of directors, and the management team all pay a lot of attention to the MCT. So you might wonder why Pro-Demnity needs to build its capital. And there are several reasons. As the profession grows, we need increasing capital just to keep up. In the past year, the architectural fees reported to us grew by over 6%. Construction costs continue to escalate at 4% per year. And the cost of defending claims, the legal expenses, continue to rise as claims become more complex. So with all of these factors, the capital required just to meet our policy liabilities is ever increasing. We also need capital so that we can invest in new technology. This will make it easier for you to interact with our firm and allow us to collect better data so that we can tailor and improve the risk guidance that we're able to provide to you. And finally, having a strong financial position allows us to weather the economic volatility and keep your premiums stable year after year, so you can focus on your business knowing that you'll always have us there to protect you. Claims are where Pro-Demnity really proves its value to the profession. Over the past decade, we've had over 2,000 claims reported, including 189 in the past year alone. Interestingly, the cost of defending a claim is typically significantly higher than the damages that we end up paying out. So in order to better control our expenses, we've set up an internal litigation team that triages every claim that comes in, and we're now handling a significant number of claims internally. It's the more complex major claims that are being handed out to external counsel. This has resulted in significant cost savings. We're also seeing an increase in the number of non-litigated claims, which means that architects are reporting issues to us sooner, and we're often able to avoid costly litigation at all and resolve the issues before they get to that stage. Pro-Demnity buys reinsurance through Lloyd's. This enables us to leverage our capital to meet increasing demands for higher limits, and it means that we're able to keep premiums stable and avoid volatility in our premiums. With the new litigation and claims management systems that we introduced last year, we're now collecting better data as to the types and sources of claims. So as you can see from this slide, education facilities, universities and schools tend to result in disproportionately severe claims, whereas multi-unit residential facilities, such as condos and apartment buildings, are significantly the highest source of claims. If you'd like to delve more into this data, it will be included in our annual report, which you can download and read. We're going to be using this data that we collect to improve the risk guidance that we provide to architects. I'm sad to tell you that in 2024, we lost a dear, cherished colleague in Margarita Chan. Margarita spent her whole career with Pro-Demnity. She started with the OAA just a month after coming to Canada from Hong Kong back in 1988. Very quickly started work with what was then the indemnity plan, and was instrumental in the transition to a full-fledged insurance company. Margarita's professionalism was unfailing. Her genuine caring and compassion for others was always evident, and she is being very sadly missed. And this is a good time for me to tell you how much I am appreciating working with the whole team at Pro-Demnity. We have a very high-functioning board that knows when to challenge senior management and when to go along with them. We have a very dedicated team of staff, and they're highly engaged, and a very experienced senior management team. So I'm very proud to be here on their behalf. So thanks again for giving me this opportunity to present on Pro-Demnity's behalf. There will be a link to our annual report in the chat, as well as a link to this presentation. Thanks.
Thank you, Deborah. I would like now to invite President Wilson back to take a few moments to address the OAA membership directly.
Annie, bienvenue. Welcome once again. This is the portion of our AGM where I can address the membership directly. I know we started our meeting today with a general land acknowledgement across Ontario, but I want to begin my own address by acknowledging that I'm speaking to you from the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, stewards of the country across the near north, from the Atlantic to the Midwest for thousands of years. Through my engagement with the Anishinaabe here in Greater Sudbury, I've enriched my knowledge as a community leader and as an architect, particularly through the sharing and making of a teaching lodge on the main campus of Laurentian University with the elders, knowledge carriers, and our students at the MacEwan School of Architecture, where I now teach following 30 years of practice. This experience and the set of relationships it's offered has fostered in me the skills for leadership I share with you today, confident in knowing that those of you that are younger than me will seek the path of leadership that helps make organizations such as the Ontario Association of Architects the effective regulator that holds the public trust under the Architects Act. As your president of the OAA's Governing Council, I'm entrusted to serve and provide leadership, guidance, and critical perspective to assist our very diligent staff to perform their duties. I have the highest regard for each of them, as I do for our council of elected members and lieutenant governors in council appointees. We meet, deliberate, debate, collaborate, and reach consensus on the many matters for which the OAA takes responsibility under the Act, ever mindful of the duty to serve and protect the public interest. As part of that duty, we operate in reference to our 5-year strategic plan. This document serves to provide focus on a set of priorities that serve the public by providing the means for those of us in the architectural profession to be ethical, effective practitioners. Our overarching themes of diversity, equity, and inclusion, and climate action. If we are respectful of each other, so we are respectful of the land. And guided by these themes, we work with staff to offer learning for members through the continuing education program. We regulate the path to licensure for architects and licensed technologists while upholding high standards and a commitment to the public interest. We support the 14 local architectural societies. We engage with government, advising with our expertise so critical to the shaping of the built environment. We create an exciting environment for learning and celebrating in Ottawa for our Reshaping Communities Conference next month. We also offer our headquarters in Toronto as a model of a renewed building, today operating with a nominal energy bill. Soon it will be fully refreshed with the work of Ja Architecture Studio, winners of our landscape architecture competition. The team, along with others on the project, including the OAA Building Committee, are striving to make our site a more sustainable, accessible, thoughtful, artful, and welcoming space. All this to say that there remains much to do, as there has been over many years that the OAA has had public trust and continues to vigorously do so. Ahead, we have the modernization of the Architects Act. This is no small effort, but will lead to a refreshed act for the next generation of communities and architects to help inspire and shape them. I'm mindful of this work as I read the autobiography of the Honorable Murray Sinclair, Anishinaabe elder, recently passed, but long to be remembered for his wisdom, generosity, and stewardship through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I have the greatest respect for such leaders, selfless and forever giving. I believe each of us in this profession in our own way holds compassion for people and the land, bringing them together through beautiful moments of architecture so communities can share in what becomes a better place. I thank you for your consideration. I thank you for your persistence in aspiring to excellence in the most important and challenging profession. I challenge you to reach for even greater opportunities to exercise our collaborative efforts to realize an inspiring built environment. And I look forward to the opportunity to engage with many of you in Ottawa. Miigwech. At this point in the meeting, we'd like to provide you with the opportunity to offer council any additional comment or feedback. If you wish to do so, please ask your question in the Ask Question function. We'll begin addressing questions as they're raised, and if you have more questions than time allows, we'll be responding with a post-meeting report citing the questions and preparing responses. Please note that the questions that are similar in nature will be grouped together and will be addressed with one response.
Ted, I do have a question, a few questions in the Q&A. So if you're prepared, I will start. I'm going to go, the first question is from Adam McGeen. And Adam says, on the topic of internal trade barriers, the government has stated that selected barriers will come down. Does this include OAA architects to practice across Canada? Has the OAA been engaged in any talks on this topic? I assume that he's chatting about the legislation, pending legislation as well. Do you want to take that one?
I think the short answer is yes, we are engaged. And I think probably, Christy, you could speak a little more specifically about one particular jurisdiction that we've been following and are preparing some preparatory positioning on this issue. So if you want to take that.
Sure, I'm happy to do that, Ted, and you're absolutely right. Some of you may have been watching this space in terms of legislation, pending legislation related to the removal of trade barriers, which includes professionals and licensing. This began as a bill in Nova Scotia, Bill 36, probably 6 to 8 weeks ago. The premier there had introduced this bill. It would essentially remove certain barriers for reciprocal licensing, as well as some other trades and professions and goods and services. So we have spoken to the Attorney General's office about this. So we have, in fact, written a letter to the AG to be asked to be involved in consultation on this matter. As you can appreciate, the OAA I can say that the OAA in general supports reciprocal licensing because in fact we have been party to a reciprocal licensing agreement with the rest of the Canadian jurisdictions for 30 years. So I think the issue for the profession, the architectural profession in particular, is just certain subtleties of this legislation about how it might play out. But certainly we, in fact, already have reciprocal licensing opportunities. But as Ted said, the short answer is yes, we are involved in those discussions. Okay.
Thank you, Christy.
I'm just, okay, I have a question from Amy Norris. Architects or should be working at the forefront of several of the most important issues of our time: climate change and housing affordability, all in a highly unstable economic climate, increasing trade barriers with the U.S. suppliers of many of the products used in construction. How is the OAA planning to protect the public interest by supporting architects in doing this important work to the best of our abilities?
Obviously a very pertinent question, and it ties into one of our overarching themes of climate action. So we have that as a strategic measure for our 5-year plan. The detail of that, we have, I think, in many different respects in the organization, but I think the one that we've probably talked about the most in the past year has been the pivot of the, which I chaired, was the Sustainable Built Environments Committee, from a committee structure to an advisory group. And motivation for that transition was to enable us to be able to more effectively use a very, very highly skilled and knowledgeable group of individuals to address particular issues, and there are several of them, whether they are with respect to regulations or they are with respect to particular issues that people bring to the table through other committees. We have this group to be able to focus very effectively on these as they come to our attention. That for me would be the one highlight I would suggest, as well as several other initiatives. The other coming forward now is the refreshing of our own site to be a model with respect to sustainable land use but also being respectful in terms of our tradition with the local Indigenous community. I don't know if there's anything to add there, Christy, that we could add to that. We have a lot on the go, and I know a lot of it does relate to sustainability, and we are trying to be as effective as we can in terms of our resources.
Correct. And that's a good point, Ted, and certainly on the resource side, we are continuing to post information and provide from various sources on the website in terms of how the tariffs in particular are affecting architectural practice. But of course, we're not providing legal advice. Certainly there's provisions in contracts and there's contractual discussions that are happening, I know at the practical level, and we've had, we are involved in some discussions that are with other industry groups that just talk about and understand what the implications are for the profession.
Thank you, Christy.
Okay. I don't have any other specific questions for you at this time, Ted. So I think, and in fact, I think we're at time.
Yes.
Timing is perfect.
Okay. So with that, I'll now entertain a motion to adjourn, which has been moved by OAA member Melissa Audet of Toronto and seconded by Tina Monlin Yong of Toronto. And the meeting is now adjourned. So thank you for everyone joining today at the OAA's AGM. Have a wonderful day. And we'll close today's meeting by once again recognizing our newly licensed members. But just before you do, if you haven't already done so, please take time to register for this year's conference, Reshaping Communities, which is coming up in Ottawa next month. You can find more information by visiting oaa.on.ca/conference. I'm looking forward to seeing everyone in Ottawa.